Beneath the streets of Tokyo, there's a cathedral no tourist ever sees. Massive stone pillars, some over 60 feet tall, standing in perfect rows inside a cavern so large it could swallow a spaceship. It looks like something built for gods. It wasn't. It was built to fight water. Tokyo sits on a floodplain, surrounded by rivers, battered by typhoons, and built on land so low that parts of the city sit below sea level. On paper, this metropolis of over 37 million people should flood constantly. And yet, year after year, as storms batter Japan, Tokyo stays dry while other cities drown. This isn't luck. It's one of the most extreme engineering operations on Earth, hidden almost entirely underground, and most people have never heard of it. Let's start with why Tokyo should be a disaster waiting to happen. Japan sits directly in the path of the Pacific typhoon belt. Every year, powerful storms sweep in from the ocean, dumping enormous amounts of rain in short bursts. Add to that Japan's rainy season, known as Tsuyu, which soaks the country for weeks every summer, and you have a recipe for catastrophic flooding. Now combine that with Tokyo's geography. The city was built across a low-lying delta where several major rivers converge before reaching Tokyo Bay. Large sections of the city, especially in the eastern lowland areas, sit at or below sea level. Historically, this made Tokyo one of the most flood-vulnerable major cities on the planet. For centuries, this was simply accepted as reality. Floods were common, costly, and deadly. But Japan doesn't just accept natural disasters, it engineers around them. Here's where the story turns into something almost unbelievable. In the 1990s, Japanese engineers began constructing what would eventually become the largest underground flood diversion system in the world. It's officially called the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel, though most people simply call it GCANS. Picture this: 5 massive concrete silos, each one large enough to fit a rocket standing upright, buried deep beneath the suburbs north of Tokyo. These silos are connected by more than 6 kilometers of enormous underground tunnels, wide enough to drive a bus through, running far below homes, roads, and rice fields where residents above have no idea what's happening beneath their feet. When a typhoon hits and nearby rivers start to overflow, floodwater doesn't spill into streets and homes. Instead, it gets pulled downward, into these silos, then channeled through the tunnel system toward a final chamber so massive it's earned a nickname among engineers: the Underground Temple. This final chamber is where the real spectacle happens. 59 towering concrete pillars support the cavern's ceiling, arranged in perfect rows, lit dramatically for the rare public tours that are allowed through. It looks less like infrastructure and more like something from ancient mythology, but its purpose is entirely practical. From this chamber, some of the most powerful water pumps ever built kick into action. These pumps, powered by aircraft engine strength turbines, blast the collected floodwater into the Edo River, which safely carries it out to Tokyo Bay, far from the neighborhoods and rivers that would otherwise overflow. In other words, Tokyo built an artificial river underground, just to protect the real one above it. But here's the twist most people don't expect. This system is only one piece of a much larger strategy. Tokyo doesn't rely on just one defense. It layers them, one after another, so that if one system gets overwhelmed, another is ready to catch the overflow. Above ground, massive floodgates line the city's rivers, capable of closing off waterways during extreme storm surges. Elevated riverbanks, reinforced with concrete, are built high enough to contain water levels that would have devastated the city decades ago. In some low-lying districts, entire neighborhoods sit slightly higher than the surrounding land, a subtle design choice meant to redirect water away from homes during flash floods. Then there's a strategy most cities have never even considered: underground rainwater storage built directly beneath everyday infrastructure. Some parking garages, sports facilities, and even school playgrounds in flood-prone areas are designed to temporarily hold floodwater during extreme storms, acting as emergency reservoirs before slowly draining once the danger passes. Residents parking their cars or kids playing soccer have no idea they're standing on emergency flood infrastructure. This is where Japan's approach becomes genuinely different from most of the world. Instead of treating flood prevention as one big wall or one big pump, Tokyo treats it as a full-body immune system, with defenses working at every level of the city simultaneously. And this system has already proven itself. During major typhoons in recent years, storms that historically would have caused catastrophic flooding across Tokyo have instead resulted in dramatically reduced damage compared to similar storms in the decades before this infrastructure existed. Areas that once flooded regularly during heavy rain now stay largely dry, even as storms intensify. This matters more than it might seem, because climate change is making these storms worse. Typhoons hitting Japan are increasingly carrying more rainfall, fueled by warmer ocean temperatures. Cities around the world are struggling to keep up with flooding that arrives faster and hits harder than infrastructure built decades ago was ever designed to handle. Tokyo essentially built its flood defenses for a future crisis, before most cities even acknowledged that crisis was coming. So why does this matter beyond Japan? Because most major cities on Earth are nowhere near this prepared. Coastal cities across the globe are grappling with rising sea levels and intensifying storms using infrastructure that's decades, sometimes over a century old. Meanwhile, engineers and urban planners from around the world now travel to Japan specifically to study the GCAN system, hoping to adapt pieces of it for their own flood-prone cities. Tokyo's approach offers a blueprint. Don't wait for disaster to force change. Build the cathedral underground before the flood ever arrives. There's something almost poetic about it. One of the busiest, most technologically advanced cities on the planet survives, not because of what's visible above ground, but because of a hidden fortress buried far beneath it, silently waiting for the next storm. Most of Tokyo's 37 million residents will never see this place. They'll never walk beneath those 60-foot pillars or watch those massive pumps roar to life during a typhoon. They'll simply wake up after a storm that should have flooded their city and find their streets completely dry. They won't even know to be grateful. And in a strange way, that's exactly the point. The best infrastructure isn't the kind people notice. It's the kind that quietly makes disaster disappear before it ever begins.